My people were biologically determined for one purpose alone. Talk to the experts. Keep talking about that disco season 2.
Yeah, so hey, I've got Ryan Britt over here, Ryan C. Britt on Twitter. We had him previously on the podcast talking about some episode of Star Trek Discovery.
Episode 4, it's so long ago.
Yeah, I know. It feels like a different time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now Star Trek Discovery's over, and I've had we've all had a little time to sit with it, and I wanted to catch up with some of our previous guests and just get a quick feeling of what your thoughts about this whole season were.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's like over, so like I felt very drained last week.
Yeah, right.
When it was over, you know.
Yeah, me too.
Very stressful about that finale, but at the same time, it does feel like a little bit of a relief because it feels, for better or for worse, it does feel like that we don't have to really be stressed out about the next season in terms of like Trekkie sort of squabbles. I think just like any kind of Trekkie squabble is sort of, I don't know, they did exactly what I would have done in their position, and I don't know if I mentioned it when we were talking about episode 4, but I actually been saying since before season 2 began, I was like, they really should just use the spore drive to jump to the future. They didn't use the spore drive to jump to the future. They created another method to jump to the future, which I thought was partially unnecessary because they had the great technology that, we already know allowed them to travel in time before and allowed them to jump to a parallel universe before.
Yeah, they've got a magic mushroom machine. It can do whatever it needs to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's most everything this show. The plot does what it needs to do, and that's just, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, the joke that I was making with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago is that Star Trek Discovery is like regular Star Trek, but like on coke. Where it's a night out and somebody's just done a lot of coke and they're like, okay, yeah, let's get Pike. We'll move on. And Pike, Spock's here. Great. All right, we got time crystals? Fuck yeah, let's have time crystals. Yeah, and it's like they don't really stop to like think about it and like nothing makes logical sense. But it's still Star Trek. It's just Star Trek on a coke binge. Whereas like TNG is like, Star Trek with like nice wine. So you're sort of like having nice wine over 45 minutes ruminating. And Deep Space Nine's like whiskey. Voyager is like a wine cooler. It's like TNG, but like, a little bit less of a vintage. And then, Enterprise is sober. That's the problem.
Great way to think about it. Yeah.
And the original series, of course, would be pot because it was the 60s. It's like, hey man, there's black on one side of their face and white on the other, man. But like, I think, whoa, man. But I think that Discovery is like, the episode of Girls where Lena Dunham is out doing coke, trading shirts with people. But it's Star Trek, and it is very much Star Trek. It's not Star Trek. It is Star Trek. It's just Star Trek on coke. And I think that as a result, this season felt very manic. And I think that, like, I thought that, I don't know. What did you think about the very last shot of them, like, actually just having the last shot be the Enterprise? I thought that was a bit weird.
Yeah, it felt like they didn't know what they were going to do exactly in season 3, and they didn't want to worry about it, so they decided, hey nerds, all this canon stuff, we're just gonna tie it off and be done with it. And hell, that's how we're going to end the season, because we're not quite sure how we want them to show up and what they didn't quite know what they wanted them to arrive to in 950 years from now. So they just kind of punted it down, and then it's the same way that season 1 ended, right? So like, hey, it's the Enterprise. Hey, look at this iconic shot. And I was like, okay.
Right, and then like the funny thing is it's almost like the showrunners are like weirdly more confident this year than they were last year. Because like I interviewed Sonequa Martin Green, and she was just like, oh no, it's definitely going to be 930 years in the future. Like that's definitely what it is. And then Alex Kurtzman was saying the same thing. But then like previous season when Gretchen Berg and Aaron Harberts were still in charge, I like asked them about the Enterprise, and they were like, well, maybe you'll see Pike and maybe you'll see Spock. You know what I mean? So they were very evasive, which made me think at that time that they weren't sure. Yeah. But then again, I don't know. I think that the canon stuff I thought was interesting because it was like I wrote about this a little bit online, but like it was so hardcore. It was like not only is Discovery jumping away, but Spock decides to make Discovery like the Fight Club of Star Trek. And the first rule is you do not talk about Discovery no one talks about Discovery ever. And I'm like,
right.
I thought that was like maybe a step too far. You know, like I didn't think that was necessary. I was like, well, I think it's enough that they jumped away, and that Section 31 in Starfleet might have made it classified. I think that might have been fine, but like for it to be Spock's idea, the most famous character in Star Trek, you know, I try to like come up with an analogy, but it would be kind of like if I don't know, it's just very weird. I thought that was a very weird thing for it to be Spock's idea. Like they were like, seriously. Star Trek is speaking directly to you now. So I thought that was just, that seemed like a slight overcompensation. Almost one that, again, like I said, they didn't really need to do. I liked it. I thought it was neat. But someone like my wife was like, wait, so they're going to do a Spock show now? Because it definitely feels that way. At the end, a Pike and Spock show. It definitely. So yeah, I don't know how you felt about that, but I don't know if I really don't want a Spock and Pike show, but at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that was my biggest problem with this season, was that it made everything, like Puck's greatest story that he ever did, he saved the fucking galaxy. Like the stakes were so huge, they're honestly bigger than anything he ever does later from now. And everything, the whole franchise, everything has to revolve around Spock, so they decided that it was Spock's idea. And that, you know, it's fine. And, you know, it's, you know, Star Trek, but it's, you know, so I'm not saying, I don't know. I did think it was funny that like nobody can ever talk about this. Nobody ever can talk about this. I can never mention it in front of everybody. But like I was half expecting him to pull like a In the Pale Moonlight at the end, like, oh yeah, and computer delete this journal.
Delete this entire Pike's just like delete everything that's and like which would have been fine actually. Pike like with a glass of whiskey in his ready room doing that would have worked.
Yeah.
Like could have. I think that I was sort of expecting weirdly another canon twist. I was expecting like, you know, for that admiral that was debriefing them, you know, whose face we never saw for some reason. I was expecting like a pan and have the admiral just be like somebody that we've seen before, like it's Q.
Oh yeah.
You know or something weird. You know what I mean? Where it's a character and then it turns and they have like a little veiny nanoprobes from Control inside of them, and their eyes light up, and you're like, oh shit, that Starfleet admiral is really the Borg. You know, they made all these weird gestures at things like that. You know, and then of course, like you've got Alex Kurtzman and Michelle Paradise interviews being like, oh no, Control was never the Borg, and it's just like, really?
Really? Okay.
That was kind of like. Whereas I talked to Alan Van Sprang, you know, who played Leland, and Heather Cheeseman, who played Ariam. And both of them were like, oh, yeah, I watched Borg episodes in preparation for this.
Sure.
You know? And they were like, oh, well, yeah, I grew up with TNG, so I was totally thinking about the Borg. So, like, the actors were like, you know,
that almost...
Borg, but then, like, yeah, I don't know.
That almost sounds like politics, like they realized there was a backlash or something. It's like, oh, great script.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know.
Though I do think that the actors who aren't Sonequa Martin Green and perhaps Ethan Peck, from what I gathered, they like from a Doug Jones to an Anthony Rapp to Hannah Cheeseman, who played Ariam this season. They all really didn't seem to know what was happening script to script. It seemed like the spoilers were being preserved that way too, the way it would be on one of these big blockbuster movies like Last Jedi or something like that.
Yeah,
you know, so it did seem like that they were in the dark. That like Alan Van Sprang was like, I had no idea that this is where it was going, even when we started filming the first few episodes.
Right.
So that, I buy that the actors didn't know.
And reading that interview you did with Hannah Cheeseman, it felt like she did have a lot of leeway to decide about like what her character's backstory and what she thought it was going to be like. So
it's very mysterious still that they decided to do that and then retain the original Ariam actress.
Right? Yeah.
As Mitchell. What's her name? Sarah Mitchum is the character, is the actress. Sarah Mitchum is the actress. The character's name is I can't remember. Pike makes it calls her out specifically in that one.
Yeah. I have it as brain fart. It was on the top.
It'll come to us right before we hang up. It'll come to me. I'll remember. But I like that she is very prominent in the last couple episodes. It's just like I thought that was so mysterious, where they were just like, well, that's real Ariam, or season 1 Ariam, I guess.
Right.
Which is sort of strange. I thought that was so weird.
It was, I don't know what that is like. We just liked that actor a lot, I guess, but it's, I don't know.
It would be like if Michael Dorn, it would be like if Worf died and Michael Dorn stayed on TNG as a human security officer who replaced Worf. That's exactly what it would be like.
Right.
No, actually, the more perfect analogy would be Brent Spiner, right? If Data died on TNG, but then a human named Brent, who had like, I don't know, a mustache or something, was a new ops operation. Oh, you really stepped up for Data.
Yeah, right.
What the fuck? That is Data. I don't know. It was weird. I didn't mind it. I think both the actresses did great. I liked them.
Yeah.
I didn't dislike it. It's nothing against anybody, but it is unprecedented.
Yeah, it's weird.
Star Trek, like, they like used the actor who played Kirk's son in a random episode, poor Merrick Buttrick, who is sadly no longer with us, like, who weirdly played a random character on season 2 of TNG, but was like, that's David Marcus, that's Kirk's son. What are you doing? Why are you recasting him? I don't know. There's other weird examples of this, like Tim Russ is like randomly on the Enterprise B in Star Trek Generations, but like not as Tuvok.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's like before he was Tuvok, so like whatever. Like, I don't know. Like, there's weird stuff of Star Trek actors getting. I mean, Diane Muldaur, who played Pulaski, was on the original series. So I mean, I wonder if there's anybody. I'm trying to think if there's anybody on Discovery that was on Star Trek before. I keep trying to rack my brains if there like is somebody, like if there's anybody like a random person that they use. I mean, the closest would be like Nicholas Meyer, the director of Wrath of Khan, being a creative consultant on season 1. Or Kristen Beyer, who was a
she wrote the Voyager novels, right?
Yeah, Voyager novels. But like, I don't know if there's an actor they've ever.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't feel like there is.
Jonathan Frakes would be the closest directing.
Sure.
Directing numerous episodes, but I mean, obviously they used that archival footage in the Talos 4 episode. That was probably my favorite episode, actually, the Talos 4 episode. I have to say. Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't awful. The whole reveal of what Burnham and Spock's falling out was just landed like a wet fart to me, because it was like I have brothers, and I've gotten in siblings where I've gotten in huge screaming drunken arguments that were as bad as that. But you know what? That's just like what siblings do. You know, it's weird. It's like that was the big falling out that you can't tell anybody about. He called him a half-breed. That was it.
I think it's, I mean, I think that, like I said before, I think that, like, my defense of all of this is that it really is, like, a really high, coked-up Star Trek, and so they're not lingering to think about these things. But I think that they created, like, an Anakin Skywalker problem with that, totally. I think, where they were, like, the Star Wars prequels were like, oh, shit, this is how Anakin turns to the dark side. You're going to really find out. So they did the same thing. They're like, this is how Spock becomes kind of a dick. This is why he's kind of cold and a dick in the original. Yeah. Like right now, he seems kind of normal and emo, but he's a dick later. So this is why. So then you're like, okay, well, this is why Spock is not a nice person later, or at the very least more distant than what we see here.
Because he's lost his balance or whatever.
So then the explanation for that is never going to be, you know, and again, like it's very similar where you see Revenge of the Sith. And you're like, wait, this is why Anakin turned to the dark side? And so then, like, I'm not saying that it's, like, completely analogous, but it's the closest thing. And it's, like, it's one of those things where it's, like, in reality, Spock's backstory never needed to be explored this way.
Right. That's just kind of what I'm mad at. And it's fine. I'll get over it, because it's just, things do this all the time.
I think that, and I think that, like, it's one of those things, like, if you were to really, years from now, be able to, like, sit down with a Kurtzman or somebody like that, and it'd be like, wouldn't it have been better to have Michael Burnham kind of be her own person and not be so explicitly connected to this legacy character? Because it does kind of do her character a disservice to a certain point, you know what I mean? And
no.
I would never really like harp on that for too long, because I think it's cool. Like, I like that she's Spock's sister because I love Star Trek and I love Spock. But like, I also do think that, like, from a writing perspective, that like it does shackle her a bit. Which is why I'm glad they're kind of free of that now. You know what I mean? Now it's sort of like, maybe all of this will feel a little less, where it's not like they have to do like, oh, this is like the Money Shot episode where, you know, Burnham goes back into Sarek's memory and, you know, from the season 1, like where she finds out like why she didn't get in the Vulcan Science Academy or whatever. You know, which was at the time I thought a pretty cool episode, because I thought that was a deft way of like avoiding the Spock question.
Yeah.
But then of course they just were like, oh, I guess that was the thing. Is that if there's one thing is I have to say, if I'm going to like kind of leave you with anything, is that like I thought Star Trek Discovery season 2, as a longtime Trek fan and like someone who's very immersed in the canon and loves following it as a journalist and interviewing all the people involved, it's like so much fun. I love it so much. I liked the experience of season 2 more than the experience of season 1. Having said that, artistically speaking, I think that season 1 may have been better.
Wow.
And I'm not saying more enjoyable, and I'm not saying more entertaining, and I'm not saying more likable, but I think that artistically it may have been more consistent, and it may have been a little bit riskier. And I think in being riskier and a little bit more consistent, it had a cohesiveness. I mean, I wrote an article about what the red signals were, after the fact, and I was just like, season 1 didn't have any of those kinds of problems. Where you're like, there were 7 signals that appeared at the same time in perfect synchronicity, but then they disappeared.
Yeah.
And then they revealed themselves one by one again, and one of them apparently was just one that Burnham shot through a wormhole.
Yeah.
In season 1, like, it really just is like, this dude got surgically altered to look like a Klingon, this dude was from a parallel universe. And that's pretty much it. You know what I mean? In terms of the logistic plot problems, leaving Star Trek canon problems out of it, just like what was happening in the plot of season 1, that was pretty much it. And and those were, and at the time, those were like goofy ass twists. At the time, people were like, "Oh, geez, really?" He spoke, but if you look back, you're like, it's actually a little cleaner.
Yeah, I mean, I knew he was Vogue from the beginning because it was like, okay, we haven't seen this character, and now we have this guy that we meet on a Klingon. I mean, I'm not going to rehash my season 1 issues.
I think you're right. But I'm just saying that, like, just from like laying all the plot out and saying, like, does this make sense? Is this consistent tonally? Is this feel like the same series? I thought that season 1 is probably like, save for maybe like the last couple episodes.
Yeah,
I would say that like I had fewer lingering questions about what had actually happened. Whereas in season 2, I have to say, as much as like I can like come up with an explanation for all of these things, I'm just like, there was a lot of loose ends. Right. And a lot of left turns. I mean, they didn't even really start talking about Control until like episode 4 or 5, in terms of like talking about what it was. I think that you didn't even realize it was an AI until like maybe like episode 6. So they were like pretty deep in before, because, Tyler would say, well, Control and Section 31. So I thought Control was like Maxwell Smart's boss, Smart, or like James, or like M from James Bond. Yeah. I didn't know who Control was. So I think that like that's kind of what I mean. Whereas like with season 1, they kind of lay it out. They're like, it's the Klingons, it's Lorca. These are the things that we're dealing with. And then the end of the series is like, we're dealing with Lorca and we're dealing with the Klingons. So Discovery season 2 is like, Pike, Spock, and Burnham. What about Culber? The sport guide's messed up. How about these red signals? Red Angel, Klingon secret baby. Hey, what else? Oh yeah, there's an AI that's going to become the entire focus of the show. What about Arium? This robot character. Remember that? It's just like I said, it's just like they're doing coke, they're doing lines. Like Tilly's just like has had too much coffee, and that's running the show. And again, I think it's really fun. And if you watch episode to episode late at night with your partner, as I did, that's fine.
Yeah, that's how I did it too.
Yeah. Those are kind of my big thoughts. Did you have any other big questions for me?
No. Yeah, I mean, I think I like this. I mean, I like this more than season 1 too, and they both seem like they were kind of like, because they both had creative issues behind the scenes that kind of disrupted things a bit. But yeah, I mean, all your points.
But I mean, I'm looking forward to season 3 a lot, simply because I think that it'll be a little bit more just interesting to see what they do with that. But I have to say, in the short term, I am unfortunately a Star Trek fan, and that unfortunately means that there has to be like this element of the familiar. And so, like, I weirdly am looking forward to the Picard show more because it's like something that's a little bit more familiar. Whereas Discovery season 3 will be it'll be familiar because it's the Discovery characters, right? But it will be, we will not have the anchor of a very Star Trek-y captain like Anson Mount was as Pike, and the sort of like appeal of, as much as emo Spock is like played out, it's like emo Spock is Spock. Like, we love seeing Spock lose his shit, So I think that like, so then I'm like, okay, well, what classic? I'm a fan too, and so I'm, as much as I like know that artistically I shouldn't want something that is anchored to nostalgia. Like, I know intellectually that's wrong. It's still like, my brain is still like, well, Picard though, And so like I am excited about that in a way that I probably am less excited. As a critic, I'm more excited for season 3 of Discovery because I'm like, well, that is interesting. But as a fan, I'm more excited for the Picard show.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. I think I'm more excited about the Picard show. Just I'm curious to see what Michael Chabon being on at such a creative lead behind it, how that'll different because they're both going to be Kurtzman run too. So I'm curious about what the writing teams and how they'll both how they'll approach things differently.
And I'll leave you with this, but the Chabon thing's really interesting. It's interesting you bring that up because his short Treks episode basically set up the season finale of Star Trek Discovery. And at the time, it felt like this bizarre, almost like Elseworld story. Like it was almost like in comics where they'd be like, oh, what if? Superman was born a sheep, or whatever. Like it felt like one of these, like maybe like it even took place outside of canon. Right, but then it ended up being like very, very clearly that episode Calypso. We now know the USS Discovery is self-aware. At the end of season 1 or season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, it's like raising its own shield.
Right.
Shit. So then like we know that like at some point in the future it will like be abandoned and like have this stowaway or this kind of like castaway aboard it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. That like the Michael Chabon short that was like very ruminative and sweet and uplifting ended up being this like weird, hey guys, we already told you how Star Trek Discovery season 2 ends. You just weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see how that interacts in season 3. And I'm hoping, honestly, that they don't bring in that character into season 3. But who knows? Well, I have no idea. I'm looking forward to be surprised, and that's a nice place to be, I think.
I think so too. Well, I'll let you go, Wade, if that's cool.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thanks again for talking to me.
Sure, of course. I hope that's something you could use.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
All right, take it easy, man.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
And here's another one. But wait. I don't recognize this guy.
Hello, hey, it's me, it's Wade. I'm talking here with another friend of the pod that maybe you haven't met or heard on Disco Home this season, but I have reasons for wanting to talk to him. Right now, I've got here Adam P. Newton at Drive Time on all the Twitters and whatnot. You may have heard him call into the show, but now I'm talking to him in person.
Thanks for having me on, Wade. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so Star Trek Discovery is finished up and everything, and we've watched it. You've presumably watched it if you're listening to this. And I guess you've watched it too, Adam.
That's correct. So over the past week, I spent from Saturday to Friday watching the entire show. I'll admit I cheated. I listened to Disco Home, all the episodes leading up to watching it, but I decided to go ahead and binge it all at once simply in order to, I wanted to watch the show, but I did not want to pay CBS All Access for 3 months for just one show.
Yeah.
No problem for Star Trek, but I don't feel that they needed all of my money for, again, just for one show.
Yeah, look, you didn't do anything wrong. You were acting under the system and the rules that they gave you, and some people might say that you're smarter than some of the others.
It's not about relative. It's not about comparing relative intelligence, Wade. It's just about saying that this is how I chose to ingest 14 episodes of a show inside of a week.
Okay, well, that's very gracious of you. Yeah. So yeah, you watched this whole thing through in a binge watch, right? Without really a whole lot of spoilers, except you did listen to the podcast.
I did not. All the spoilers I had were just the stuff that I found on some of the trusted websites that I read for science fiction stuff, the Iodines and whatnot. People that Ryan Britt, who you had on the show. I mean, just a few trusted writers whose opinions I liked. So I read their stuff leading up to the season, and to be honest, it was not a show I was worried about spoilers about because the show gave them away. Here's Christopher Pike. Here's number one. Here's Spock. Here's the show's about faith versus science. I'm thinking, well, that's a different story. But the show gave away its spoilers as part of the promotion for the second season. So I wasn't necessarily worried about, by listening to this go home all the way through season 2 or reading things about it, I wasn't necessarily worried about spoilers because I just wasn't. It's like, I know I'll watch it. I'm just going to go ahead and invest in it and go from there. I liked some, poor equivocation. On Hugh's rewatch meter, it's a nice 6 out of 10. There's enough that I will go back and watch it. There's a lot that I thought was absolutely terrible. But if I take a step back and realize there were no big meta stories, it was basically, as I think I said this morning, it was basically chasing MacGuffins around the Alpha Quadrant. If I take that show at face value, I can rewatch that show as is. It's a standalone season. It has next to nothing to do with the season that came before it. They didn't develop enough characters on season 1 to carry forward. So if you take the text as text, and the show had no subtext. If you take the text as text, it was an enjoyable enough show with great production value, a fantastic cast. The show looked good. It is a show I can rewatch. It is a show that I will like. It's a show I had big problems with in terms of writing and plot development and carrying some aspects of story over from one episode to the next. No. As you said, as they chase those MacGuffins around, there were plenty of them. They would forget one from episode to episode, whether it was the Dark Matter or it was the Baul and Serana's Saru's sister. Yes, they managed it. They thought they could tie it all up at the end, saying, "No, it was Michael the entire time," as she put red angel signals around the Alpha Quadrant. That's poor storytelling, my friends. That's poor storytelling. So, you take the good, you take the bad. There you have the facts of life. Again, 6 out of 10. It wasn't great. There have been worse season 2s in Star Trek, to be totally honest.
Sure.
But I would also say the show still has not managed to convey to be the serialized Star Trek that they think it really is in terms of prestige or even peak TV. It's a decent show with good actors, and the arc is it's not a serialized arc. It's happened to. There's just enough of a through line from episode to episode that they drive this one single plot forward. There's no deviation from let's just move the plot forward.
Right.
And the plot, like you just said, it's a bunch of MacGuffins all strung together that center around Michael Burnham being basically Jesus.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, I haven't given a rewatch meter, but 6 out of 10 is probably generous. Like, I enjoyed a lot of this show, but the more I just sit with it, I'm just like, you know what? And I've read interviews and stuff with the producers and stuff, and they're like, oh, they were just wanting to do let's do a TV show like you do a movie.
Yeah, no.
They did, but blockbuster movies are dumb nowadays, and so yeah, I watched it once, and so I get what movies are, and without more of a workable theme that I can really think about that will really keep speaking to me. Like there's not like nuances that I'm missing because they're
there's no nuance. There's no subtext of the show. It's basically flashbang production with actors who are doing the best they possibly fucking can with the material they're given. And 14 episodes. They're all about 45 minutes piece. So you have this one. Basically, it's a 10-hour Star Trek movie. And I guess I don't want to watch a 10-hour Star Trek movie. I just don't. I mean, I have a problem with serialized Trek. As we know, the best Trek had some serialization attempts in there.
Sure.
But then again, the best Trek has always been those big step back, here's what it all means kind of episodes. All of the other series have episodes. The ones that make the top 10 lists aren't about necessarily the show itself. They're about science fiction and Earth and humanity and who are we in the context of the Star Trek universe.
Right.
Discovery doesn't have any of that. It's, again, Michael Burnham is Jesus. Everyone has to, like, literally, she becomes an angel. Right? She becomes an angel to lead her people to salvation.
Right.
People who complain about Deep Space Nine
right. Yeah, I mean,
and Cisco's prophet complex, how can they not dislike Discovery? Because literally, Michael Burnham becomes an angel who leads her people to salvation. That's just, again.
Yeah, I mean, her foster brother tells her, like, your problem, Michael, is that you always feel a necessity to save everything, and some things aren't logical and are outside of your control, and you can't. But in the end, nope, she can. She can't save everybody.
Yes.
Fucking awesome. And great. Sweet.
And so you have this fucking awesome character who's just like the end-all be-all, but yet, because of how the showrunners and the writers created this show, you can't talk about her and the rest of the canon. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not a canon purist by any stretch.
Right.
But Spock literally says at the end of season 2, we can't talk about you anymore because you have to hide who you are, so they can't find you. So great. The most awesome Starfleet person ever can't ever be talked about in the Starfleet universe.
Right.
That's just, it's kind of dumb.
Right.
That's actually really dumb.
Yeah. But we knew that they wouldn't be able to because they never have. And I mean, that's
a part of this setting it inside of that universe already at that time period, which we knew from the beginning was going to be really dumb. Really, they just hampered themselves and just undercut themselves from the get-go.
Yeah.
And they could have done it. I'll say this: the conversation Bucky and I've had. They could have done it if they had made it about a ship on the other side of the quadrant who never dealt with the Enterprise. But for episode 1, season 1, I am Spock's foster sister from the jump. So
right. Yeah, and the whole idea of the spore drive really kind of like negates any. I mean, it's my problem with the whole making the galaxy small. It negates any idea of you're on the other side of the quadrant that we can't reach anyways. Like,
yes, absolutely. And as y'all have commented on many times this season, it's in the service of plot. It's how fast people move without the spore drive. Like even in this finale, how exactly did Ash Tyler get all the way from Discovery to the Klingon homeworld and then zip right back across to where they were? Unless
I didn't realize it was so close to Vulcan because Sarek and Amanda got there pretty quickly too.
Right. So it's
but Control Leland had to get there in 57 minutes from across the room. I don't know.
I don't want to rehash old material because that's you and Sean Glenn mentioned that many times. Is how you said how small made everything feel. Is how are these things happening so close together? And it's just because it's in the service of plot. It's not about nerd cornering. Right. It's just about being realistic. And as Kristen mentioned on Discord a few times, it's when you set a time limit of it must happen within this 57, 53, 42, whatever minute time frame, and it's obvious that you're not actually sticking to it in the context of the show. Like the part one of the two-parter, all this seems supposed to happen, yet they have all this time to spend saying goodbye to everyone. And it's just, it's absolutely terrible pacing at all the expense of plot.
All right. Okay, I have a question. Since you watched it so quickly in a binge session, like I had time to sit and stew and get mad about things from week to week. So how was it going through? Could you tell, like, oh, this is when the showrunners must have left. Oh, this is when something else is going on here. Or just what was the experience of watching it all in such a quick
you can definitely tell when the other showrunners left because that was the end of, if I'm not saying, the Bible storyline. So you the first 5 or 6 all basically made pretty much sense in terms of they went to the Eden planet and they started asking questions about science versus faith. Like literally the second episode was all science versus faith, which is fine. I have a problem with it existentially. It was all an execution. So you get there and you have those questions, and you get to Saru's planet, which again had that been the focus of the episode, again, actual aliens in Star Trek, imagine that. There were some science and faith things there in terms of what right did he have to impose on to crush their faith and their worldview by saying, guess what? You can evolve and be better. So that ends. And then you don't come back to it until they appear as it's a safe haven. They're jumping into the future. And then the Bowl fighters show up magically to save the day.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's a very clear line of demarcation.
Right. It just dawned on me, like, even the thing that I groaned the most when they're like, oh, God, I get they're doing faith and religion, where their kind of bastardization of Clark's Law, like any sufficient civilization is indistinguishable from God shit.
Right.
That, I mean, one, I hated that so much anyways, but even if that is the themes they were setting up, is not even a sufficiently advanced anything because it's tech that the Federation already has.
Yes.
The whole point of the red signals is they're not even more advanced than anybody because it's Section 31 doing stuff the whole time anyways. So, yeah, it's another shooting themselves in the dick as far as their themes of this. It's about, because, I mean, the whole faith in religion thing was just, sorry, I'm ranting. By the end of it, they're like, oh, that's that thing we set up. Quick, just have Michael say, I guess I'll have to make a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And there, we've tied it up. Okay, we did what we said we are. And I'm like, okay, I'm giving you a fucking D on your paper. That's bad.
You're pretty spot on with the grading of the term papers as speeches that they got across in episode 2, which again, as an hour-long movie that's action-packed and pizzazz and wow, sure, that's fun to watch. But the actual words on the page, no, forget that shit.
Yeah.
But to the larger question, the first 6 felt connected, and then the last 8 were connected enough. Even the last 8 were still basically, again, we figure out what the MacGuffin's going to be. It's not the dark matter. It's not the Baul. It's not the sphere. The sphere was fucking cool, which they just like. It was all the sphere was just an information dump that the universe had to have. I mean, that probably is the biggest MacGuffin in the entire season. Is this big fucking spear that shows up for for an episode and a half,
right? Yeah,
and then it's just basically. It's a hard drive. It's basically
right. They don't spend any time for a xenoanthropologist wondering, oh, I really want to know about the civilization that created the sphere, what kind of the sphere was about. But no, it's just a repository of information for hundreds of thousands of years of everything. Again, this show doesn't do anything small because it's every history of everything is in the sphere. It's like the ultimate, like a Wikipedia, I guess. And
right, it's like the ultimate Wikipedia entry wrapped up in neocolonialism. It's
right.
You don't need to actually look at the data. It's just must acquire knowledge to exploit for our civilization.
Right, and if Michael's a xenoanthropologist, wow, that's a missed opportunity right there.
Well, her being a xenoanthropologist in general is a missed opportunity because, again, we have 28 episodes across 2 seasons. How many actual other cultures have we seen?
About 4 in total, it feels like.
So the Baul, the Kelpians. We have the people that made Saru go crazy in season 1.
Yes.
Which again also was an advanced civilization that was a MacGuffin.
Right.
I guess the Klingons because they're not human.
Sure. The Zahians, which she never met because that's short trek.
A short trek. Yes. So we have 5.
Yeah,
5.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying we need Alien of the Week, but we also this is about space friends solving problems in space. They're not just about
and the big bad is ourselves, and it's Skynet, and it's like, okay,
right. The big bad being Skynet, which is kind of like, which again, the big bad being Skynet, almost Borg, is just cheap,
right?
Really,
and
really
I've read interviews with Michelle Paradise since then, where she's given a lot of like corporate speak. We were so happy with everything we did. But she was like, oh, we didn't even actually intend for it to be Borg, but I see what people got there. We were just right. This is just some shit we figured out in the room.
She said that it's not Borg.
She said, oh, I see where people came up with that idea, but that wasn't our intention. That's just like how we just had an idea in the writer's room and it ended up being what it was. And I'm like, all right, I don't know if I believe you, or I don't know what to think about that, but it's more PR speak, though, most of the time.
I'm sure it is, but for all the alleged Star Trek fans that are in that writer's room, for you to poke a guy in the eye and to have nanites take over his body and to say, how is that the Borg? I don't know what you're talking about. That's just horseshit.
Right, yeah. It's like, it totally makes sense. Yeah, like, okay, nobody wrote that struggle is pointless line and thought about the Borg. Okay, fine.
And also to Sean's point, how did he get in the fucking chair?
Yeah, how did he get? Yeah, this whole show is like, oh, and that interview she was like, oh, it was so fun to, Alex is so great at making a show that looks like a movie. And it's like, all right, you know what? You're not wrong there, lady. but he's good at making big, stupid movies that don't make sense and that have made a lot of money in the past, but that doesn't mean they're good.
I haven't read any of it post watching the finale. What has been the overall take on how good season 2 is from what you've read?
I haven't read a lot of critical season reviews just yet. I've seen the Twitterati of Star Trek fans that if you say anything bad about it, they get real mad, and there's a lot of sycophantic the actors, which I don't begrudge anybody saying I'm so happy with the geniuses I worked with and this. Because if you're an actor, your job is to be enthusiastic about this stuff. That's fine.
Absolutely.
And so if they paid me to work on Star Trek, I would be given the same line myself. But I don't see that happening. So hire me and buy me out. I will stop being critical of this show immediately. If you give me just and I know they don't pay well in Hollywood for just starting up writers' assistants or anything, but just give me that much money, and I will stop saying anything negative about the show.
You think that would work, but Jordan Hoffman tried that, and his show got canceled.
Yeah, well, I'm not even going to say anything negative about Jordan there, because he's playing the game.
I tease. He's an easy target for again being kind of sycophantic.
Yeah. His show
when good, when he brought good guest stars. I liked his show. It was But there were times when it was just him and his producer talking for an hour. I'm like, no, give me a guest star, give me someone from Star Trek to interview. Be a journalist, don't just be a fan.
Yeah. But yeah. So
anyway, I have a lot of the same people show up on my feed about Star Trek, including there are a couple of just fans, kind of super fans that I follow that I thought were more on board than I thought they were. With the show. But I know a lot of people just resonated with the overall just strength of character.
Right. And it's the representation on screen is great. And, having all these, gay characters and so many, there's more strong female characters in that show than there are men, which is great. There's no problem. I'm not like some edgelord that's it's all these SJ. No, I'm on board with all of that. But so there's a lot of that. I feel like fans, people just are excited about that, and I don't want to shit on anybody for that.
No, and it's representation absolutely matters. We're two cishet white dudes talking about Star Trek on the podcast.
Right.
I absolutely believe that representation matters. My quibble has never been with. It's always been just the general pacing and plotting and storytelling. Again, the character, the across the board, I'd probably say that the caliber of actors on this show is higher on average than any other series that's come before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all the great things. There's a reason I love DS9 more than the others. But on average, there's no one on this show that comes close to being as milquetoast and bland and annoying as Sadig, as Julie Bashir. I mean, there just isn't.
Yeah.
It's just the writing. The stories just don't make sense. It's all whiz bang and pop twist, pop twist, and no actual. Let's say something. If you don't want to say anything, that's fine.
Right.
But don't pretend you're saying something when you're just making flashbang in space.
Yeah, I mean, even for all the even the super fans, I'm in a few private groups, and there's people from Star Trek Hour, which are generally big, huge Star Trek. I do see some people are yeah, this stuff that doesn't make sense does bug a little bit people a little bit too, to an extent. But overall, I think the response has been pretty positive,
pretty good.
Which part of me is good for them, but then part of me is no, don't reward this kind of stuff. Tell people the kind of Star Trek you want. I don't care if it looks great for looks like a big budget movie. I don't actually want a big budget movie Star Trek
every single week. I don't want that every single week. I'd
rather have a cheap Star Trek. But I mean, there's the Orville, but that's a whole other topic. Which I actually will probably start watching later this week. So yeah, I
mostly enjoy most of season 2. So season 1, I should say, the Orville. So.
I guess that's a whole other podcast. But
it is.
I think the Orville has some actually it's TNG. With the serial numbers shaved off, but it does some TNG better than a lot of TNG did it in some ways. But it's also got that goofiness to it, so that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I think that show would be 10 times better if Seth MacFarlane didn't cast himself in the lead role.
Yeah.
Because he can't actively have a sack. Everyone else is great. That show is really a lot of silly, dumb space fun that tells some good stories and has some good humanistic, positive morality behind it. It's just Seth MacFarlane's kind of a goofball as a captain.
He actually, I guess he actually grew on me a little bit, and I've mostly caught up on season 2 of the Orville, and there's some of it where I'm okay, this is what I mean. I'm not a person though. There's a lot of people on Star Trek Twitter and whatnot who are oh fuck Discovery, the Orville's the Star Trek show that is actually Star Trek, and I'm I'm not taking sides. They both have things to merits and demerits that I'm giving them, but I actually I think the Orville does it, and that was a journey for me because I was anti it for a while.
I understand. You should be able to enjoy both shows on its own merits. You don't have to pick sides. I've always liked Star Trek as my favorite form of televised science fiction, but I just like good science fiction and fantasy that tells good stories. Yeah. If the Orville is telling a good story, I'm going to watch the Orville. If Star Trek is telling a good story, I'm going to watch Star Trek. If The Expanse is telling a good story, which I'm told it is, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, I will enjoy a good story. I'll probably get into The Expanse next year, because I want to read the books first before I get into the show.
Yeah, you're a guy that wants to read the books beforehand, right? Yeah,
that's always been my thing. So I only have so much time and so many books in the queue. So I'll get into it eventually because I know the books are really pretty swift read, and the show is supposed to be fantastic. So
I've watched the show. I haven't read the books, but
Hasn't Hugh read the books?
Hugh read 1 or 2 of them, and then Hugh was a guy that will it's not working for me, I will drop it like it's hot, and I think he did for that. But
there you go.
I know a lot of people on that on the Hell of a Way to Die Discord are big fans of those books, and you and I are both.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess I don't know. I don't know what else to talk about here. If you have any other thoughts that you feel like you need to get out of the way, we kind of devolved into talking about other sci-fi.
Sure. No. So let's think. The season ended with them literally flying into the future through a wormhole, and we assumed Giorgio is with them. I kept looking for a shuttle pod to fly away at the last possible second. I'm not sure if I did see that or not, but then I'm hearing reports that they're not going to shoot Section 31 until after season 3 of Discovery, so she might come back.
That's correct.
Who knows?
So they don't have to set it. Yeah, they can do whatever they want with it. I think they're waiting also, if season 3 bombs, there might not be half these shows anymore.
Sure, absolutely. Again, I like Star Trek. I like the ideals of Star Trek and Starfleet. I'm curious with this soft reboot. Y'all said a soft reboot. This is a pretty hard reboot. It's the same basic players on their ship, but this could be centuries beyond the existence of the Federation. So this could be just like literal space friends in space solving problems. And so, I mean, just on the strength of what I think Michelle Paradise has done in her few episodes and that cast, I'll probably find a way to watch season 3. I'll probably do like I did again, where wait till it's all done and then binge it in a week. Unless CBS Access drops another amazing show you just have to catch.
It's like the Picard show will come before then. So.
Like the Picard show. That's exactly right.
We'll see how that goes.
I'm very curious to see what that's going to be like. One thing I'm most nervous about with that show, it's not the writers that they've collected, or Patrick Stewart like being in the room as they're writing. It's the other casting. Yes, obviously you don't need to just bring back the old crew, 'cause that's boring. But like they're like young people, like 20-somethings. So it's kind of like the one theory I've heard floated is he's just a random admiral, and they're off on just a maiden voyage of just a new ship, but he just happens to be on as a supervising admiral, and they get caught in some hijinks. Right. The show goes on from there, which I mean, I guess, but
or the best way for that, Hugh's big dream for that show is that he's the gardener at Starfleet Academy,
which would be fucking awesome. That would be so great.
And then maybe they're all cadets and stuff. I don't know.
Which you know what? I would be fine with that because he gets to have his old man "what does it all mean" story while helping other people go explore the world, as opposed to I'm an old man on a starbase and I am bitter about what happened in my life, which I'm not sure.
Right.
Melancholy old man Picard, I can get behind. I'm not sure if I want bitter old man Picard.
Yeah, I mean, I think going forward, what I want, the Star Trek is a whole kind of distinct genre in sci-fi that's kind of set apart by its aspirational tones, and I want a Star Trek that actually, I mean, honestly, what I would love is a subversive Star Trek that takes luxury gay space communism instead of being watered down neoliberalism, which it ends up being a lot of times.
Absolutely.
But we're obviously not going to get that with Alex Kurtzman, and Michelle Paradise is the showrunner, and I was reading this interview and like, oh shit, I'm a little bit bummed out now. She's not the sole showrunner. She is a co-showrunner with Alex Kurtzman still.
He's still there. Oh, great. Yeah. Which is basically code for I'm here just in case things go down.
Right, because I mean, I've talked up and I'm excited about what she's going to bring, and I think I've liked what she's brought in her scripts. I think having her as the sole showrunner was going to be a hard sell because she's only really worked on 2 shows that I've noticed. She wrote on like 5 seasons of the original.
What's that?
It's a vampire show on the CW that my partner loves. But I don't know. I don't like vampire shows. And then she was a writer and star of X's and O's on Logo in 2003, which was a show about a lesbian filmmaker or something. I'm not sure. So she was a writer. She did a short film that got turned into a series on Logo, where she was a star even.
That's pretty cool, actually.
So, yeah. So, but now I think she's kind of, you don't see anybody talking about that in her, when they're talking about what she's known for. She's like, oh, she wrote on the original.
Right.
And she only came on apparently like halfway through the season when they started firing the original producers and the showrunners. So I think, it makes sense that they're not going to give her the full reins, but I'm hoping that she can step up, and even if she's a co-showrunner, that she can really guide the mission, as it were.
Just trust somebody, have an idea, trust someone to execute that idea, and don't hold their hand or hold one hand behind their back. Just give them an honest chance.
Yeah.
That's all I want from a decent show, is just give the people in charge an honest chance without the suits being too much in the way. I know that's kind of very naive of me in terms of how TV works, but it'd just be nice, man.
Yeah, it would be. But, yeah.
All
right. Well, I guess that's what we want from the show.
It is true.
We'll see what we get. Thanks again for coming on and giving your thoughts. I'm happy to get like a lot of different opinions about this show. And do you have anything to plug that you want to talk? Shoot?
No, if you want to follow me, I Drive Time on Twitter, DRYVETYME, and I talk about Star Trek and socialism and making it a better place for my kid.
Yeah.
And music. Music's pretty cool too.
Yeah, everybody make sure to go follow Adam over there. Yeah, he's got a lot of good stuff to say, and I value his opinions. And that, so, all right.
This has been a podcast.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you later.
Subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher or Caster or Fuckcast or Podsucker. Review us on iTunes. Also grab a bit of fame for yourself by calling us at 917-408-3898 and leaving. But wait, this is the end. I guess there is another pod we can squeeze out of this thing. Every companion will be heard. I guess if you really want to leave a voicemail you can. Maybe Wade will fit it in. But if you were going to call you probably would have already done so by now, wouldn't you?